You don't need words before you feel it. When you think about language itself, when you write things down or when you try to speak things, it comes second to your thoughts. And even your thoughts come second to even your somatic experiences in life. So, and even as a baby, you can't even speak, but you're already alive. That's an important thing, is to tap into that feeling state. And like you said, there's a lot of things that can really distract you from connection to that. But that really became another spiritual language to me. It's really, really trusting my body and understanding what it meant, understanding what pain feels like, understanding what joy feels like in a really deep sense. Attunement with your own physical sensations directly relates to your performance.
How do I get into a more authentic wholeness, radical wholeness space where I'm allowing my feminine to come up and soften myself and not be so heavy in my masculine? How does that person get out of that containment of always being in the masculine, always providing, doing, controlling, and receive life instead of controlling? How does a person shift into that dynamic? Spiritual Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Bigger, and we back again with another episode. And today, oh man, I can't wait till you guys meet my guest, Anthony Battle. I call him AB, a conscious God, a mentor, but we also was on season 13 of The Bachelorette. We spent some time together. Anthony, welcome to the podcast. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Good to be here. Good to be here with you.
Yes.
Biggs, yes.
I love it. So before we get into like the details of consciousness and like what you do now and how you help people, take us to the journey of like growing up in Chicago, playing football, and just creating a name for yourself within that space. What was that like growing up? Because I don't think I have that story.
Yeah, I just grew up there. I got two sisters, a twin sister, and then I have a young...
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I had my two parents. So, nice little humble, beautiful family, and grandparents, cousins. It was a nice little unit we had in Chicago. So it was beautiful.
Yeah, so it sounds like you grew up in a very stable environment energetically. Yeah. Outside of the things of Chicago, because when you were saying 53rd, I'm like, it's the low ends or the hundreds. Like, I don't really know.
Not that far south. No,
right.
Far south.
I'm moved to ask you, like, in that space, growing up in the environment you were in, playing football, being from Chicago, what place does spirituality have in that part of your journey of life, or church, or religion, or just God, or what was that like growing up, or was that even a thing?
When you say energetically, I think that's where I kind of root myself. And I'm thinking about what my parents, the sort of environment they gave us as children is really all about love. And that was the first thing. So even before any sort of vocabulary, we went to church here and there, they got married in the church, all that good stuff. We had that language, but it was really about what it felt like to be in their presence with my parents and in that family unit. And I just felt like that was spiritual to me. That's God to me. That's how I understood it deeply in a felt sense. It wasn't about what somebody taught me. It's like, I saw it. I witnessed it in my parents in front of me. So that's how I started. And then as I grew up, I learned more intellectually about, spirituality, finding different languages. Went to a Catholic high school, and that's where I started to root in terms of what does it feel like to be a part of a specific tradition. But again, started with just energy. I saw, you don't need words before you feel it.
You don't need words before you feel it. Can you expand that? Just go a little deeper into that statement. I really like that.
When you think about language itself and the way people, when you write things down or when you try to speak things, it comes second to your thoughts. And even your thoughts come second to even your somatic experiences in life. So you see things, you hear things, you smell things, you taste things. And even as a baby, you can't even speak, but you're already alive. So that's how your initial experiences of life is really through this huge influx of sensation. So that's really... You can see children now, and if you look at some people talk about, babies having access to this world and their spirituality before there's any language that comes. And that's kind of, I think of that as the primordial sense of God is before words, like this childlike baby sense of the world. So children have contact with that. Babies have contact with that. And then even as adults, we try to understand what it is and explain it. But it's all before words that really we get the truth of experience and the truth of what life is.
And I think the world we're living in today, unconsciously or subconsciously, we've been moving out of the feeling state, right?
Yeah.
And we're going into the knowing state. We're getting all this information that we know, but we don't even feel what we know. So do we really know it? From your practice and your journey, how does feeling translate to life, right? As far as like success, progress, love, creation, how do we get into a feeling state where we feel safe to feel what we need to feel to get to our higher self or a higher calm? How does that work in what you offer to the world or what you do in your day to day?
That's an important thing, is to tap into that feeling state. And like you said, there's a lot of things that can really distract you from connection to that. But that really became another spiritual language to me. It's really, really trusting my body and understanding what it meant, understanding what pain feels like, understanding what joy feels like in a really deep sense, and understanding how that relates to my personal development. Because you, as a football player, you see it, you see numbers, you see statistics, you kind of really early on start to measure what it feels like to tap into your body. It's not just vague emotion and feelings. It's like your attunement with your own physical sensations directly relates to your performance and your ability to really do something. So you have to know what's going on. You have to learn that vocabulary of feeling, not just emotional feeling, but tactile feeling like that. You have to learn that early. And then it just became like a root for how I even practice now with people, is really diving into that somatic understanding, really making sure that people, anybody, even if you have ideas and thoughts about who you are and how you want to live, you need to embody it and live it. And that's kind of my process going forward, is that everything I do is about, maybe I want to do this thing, maybe I want to be around this people, but then the next step is to jump into it and be in it physically in order to actually make it true. Because I'm curious, it's just rolling in circles. It's not real. But once you put your body into the experience, that's real.
Yeah, and it's so good because that's the space I've been in these last 8 months, is that because I've always been an intellect, right? The intellectual mind of like knowing life so I can move life through my mind. And I have this thing within my gene keys where I have to feel life. And the more I feel, I actually move faster and further if I allow myself to feel what I don't want to feel. So then what I'll do is try to go get information to feel that feeling. I want to ask a question about, why do you think it's such a hard time to feel our true emotions? Like, what is that? What do you think that disconnect or that challenge might be for us? Is it because we're not wired like that to naturally feel and express, or it's a conscious thing that we haven't grown to actualize because of fear? I'm just curious your perspective.
Yeah, sure. I'll first say that men are definitely wired to have emotions, the full spectrum. For sure, we can feel that. I would say a lot of it, the way we kind of suppress that is just masculine conditioning, societal.
Okay.
Even if you think about the word vulnerability, and I'm going to go into some etymology a little bit again, like the word vulnerability is rooted in the word wound. And I think that men are not don't have a healthy relationship to their wounds. They don't know their wounds, or they see their wounds as something that is a liability. So you walk into the world wounded. I mean, in an environment that is dangerous, I mean, you look like a target. So then you condition yourself to conceal your wounds and to protect yourself and stay guarded. When that, in that guardedness is where you create disconnect from other people. Then you can't build healthy relationships. You can't be in brotherhood even without sharing those wounds. But again, there is a catch-22, because you have to be in a safe environment for those wounds to not be exploited. So then, but if you're not there and you're activated, you're just going to be conditioned to be guarded. So it's the conditioning, but it's also the environment that puts men in emotionally unsafe places where they cannot be vulnerable without experiencing pain. And everybody's afraid of pain. Nobody wants to hurt. We have to be able to gain access to our wounds and to share that without feeling afraid that our wounds are going to destroy us. I think seeing it as a not as a liability, but as a pathway to deeper connection with spirit, with other people. That's what I've learned in my journey. I have wounds too. And in the last several years, I've learned to really understand what those wounds are and to see just like the deep beauty of having experienced life in that way. Because you can't be wounded unless you feel deeply connected to something. Like the wound comes from losing or being disconnected from something you love. That is where the depth of it, when you understand it, that is really a beauty in understanding that you even experienced that in the first place, that you can be wounded. That means you can feel that you can be in contact with life in a very deep way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, but like that's a process, and it's scary. It's very scary because it feels like ego death. You feel like when you realize that deep connection, you have to let go of something, and that can feel like death, ego death, to let go of that attachment to who you think you are and to let the wounds guide you. That's tough work. And yeah, it takes a long time sometimes.
Yeah, you said something that I want to reiterate or say back to people who are going to listen and watching this in a moment is your wounds are not a liability. They're a pathway to vulnerability. They're a pathway to a new version of yourself. And I have this ideology, AB. Help me understand if what I'm saying is true, or or it's just my experience, because I don't want to make my experience everybody else. But I believe as a man, in order to experience the highest form of love, you have to understand and know what heartbreak feels like, right? Mm. And so I always ask people, how do you know you want something you never had? Mm-hmm. Right? How do you know? And then I was like, but that's why I want it, because I never had it. So if I don't know what pain is, right, or experience pain at a deep level, how do I really know what love is as a deep level?
As you mentioned that, so I think about, we talked, I'm going to say a few things. First of all, I think of a Bible passage. Okay. I think of John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, so we may not perish, but have eternal life. And I think about that because, and I think about that and I connect it to my personal experience. I have a younger brother, haven't seen him for over 10 years. I don't know if he's alive or dead. Wow. It's a mysterious fate for our whole family. And it's been very painful. Now we're on a healing side of things, but it was painful early on. And to hold the mystery of his sort of life and the sort of and not knowing how things have played out, that has really shown us the depth of the love in our family, because that connection still exists even in his physical absence. And then I related to that Bible passage just because the idea of losing and sacrificing and disconnecting from something that you love so deeply, it does show you the amount of love. It does show you the love there. And it can show you how far your heart and your soul can expand in order to continue to hold this beautiful love. It expands beyond what you thought it was. When you feel it pulling, when you feel something you're connected to kind of pull away from you or be taken from you, then you can feel that when you're still tethered to that in some way, then it shows you just the true expansiveness of what love can be. It goes beyond lifetime. It goes beyond space. It could go infinite, and that's kind of what I learned in my experience of losing and experience of grief, is that love is infinite. Love even transcends the grief, and it just continues. And it becomes something bigger than just an individual. It's just like becomes about the world. And for, everybody has different spiritual traditions, but I speak in a language of Christianity sometimes. That was the lesson, I think, of the sacrifice of Jesus for people who resonate with that, is to show that infinite expansion in the sacrifice. That's the point, is to teach us God's love in that losing, and that it still continues through that, through suffering, through loss, through separation, that the love is still there.
And you know what? That's so good, because now you're taking me back to that moment where I felt so lost and separate from myself. The love was still available. Mm-hmm. I still had enough love in me and around me to get up and do the thing I needed to do to be where I needed to be. But it's also making me think about the shadow self and the light self, or the higher self. And in the world we live in, it's a lot of shadow energetics that's going on, a lot of darkness, right?
Sure.
And it's so easy to judge the shadow, to judge the darkness within us as human beings and within the world. And I know within life, we need both polarities. We need the day, we need the night. We need darkness, we need light. So I do believe if we could take a positive aspect or approach of our pain, our suffering, our separation, our loss, our devastation, our tragedy, and turn that into light, to power, to purpose, to prosperity, then we won't have such resistance to our shadow, right? Yeah. Or we're not so, controlled by our darkness that we're afraid of our light. In your moment, you said, you haven't seen your brother in 10 years and you and your family are not aware. What else in your life has put you in a space where you had to have faith and certainty and trust into something greater? Because sometimes in life, when I'm talking to people, we got our 5-year goal, our 3-year goal, like this, that, and the third. But I'm at a point in my life where I have so much trust into the unseen, life intelligence, God beyond infinite intelligence, that if I'm in alignment of what I'm doing every day, God provides, and life will always set me on a journey where I need to be. Yeah. Not that I don't have fear, not that I don't struggle, but I've kind of moved out of that space of like, oh my God, let me control this. Or if pain comes or darkness come, I'm frantic. I'm just more like, okay, maybe this is what I need to endure, but what in your life has also caused you to have deeper faith because of a shadow or dark experience?
In my earlier years, I've kind of always had trust that life would work out for me, in certain ways. And I think that the earlier version of school was fine. Everything was kind of working out and structurally. I was okay with the way life played out in terms of success and meeting these certain benchmarks and things like that. So I think I trusted that super early, and I was just privileged to have that. But in terms of, I guess, after the fact of after experiencing success in my life and then experiencing extreme, like deep, like losing a brother is profoundly challenging, to say the least. But then being able for people to be pulled into my life, even during that time, even as I'm sort of masking and performing and trying to still continue on this trajectory while holding deep pain, it really pulled certain people into my life, beautiful people, loved ones, bonding with my family more, even specifically my romantic relationships. I would say that I've been blessed in a lot of ways to come in contact with women, and now a specific woman, to be able who are capable of holding those wounds in a way. So really, women have taught me in a way to be vulnerable in a way, and to kind of relax, like the specific romantic space in a relationship, to be able to be able as a man to just kind of let go and to be able to cry and to be able to be that vulnerable and to not fall off the face of the earth
Right.
is something I really felt like kept me buoyant in some times of darkness. And in choosing a life partner now, that's something to be able to know that that person has got your back in those dark times. I think that, and also seeing my parents do that, and seeing their relationship and their marriage be sustained over several decades, 30 plus years, et cetera, like seeing that modeled and then being able to see that as a possibility for myself. I think that's what it is. It's just trusting that I could lean on other people is what kept me through stuff. Because, being a lone wolf or trying to be that man that pulls himself by his bootstraps and just does it and just grinds through, that burns out. At some point, you're going to reach the limit of that. And then what else do you have left? You have other people. You need somebody else to reach out. You need a hand. You need a soft place to land. Yeah. So that really, honestly, that's the real answer.
Your blueprint was kind of set up to see togetherness in some capacity, whether it was happy or not bad, you still had, right? And so then I think about my life where I didn't have mom and dad together. I didn't see that. I saw a lot of separation. I saw a lot of dysfunction. And so it's so funny that I put a lot of my energy into God, right? Mm-hmm. That was what I had to lean on or trust, right? Mm-hmm. And then I got to a space where when I was in darkness, I wanted to lean on people, but they couldn't hold the lean in the way I needed it or as my soul needed it. I went back to God. Yeah. And the more I would go back to God and really, and here's the thing, like you said, leaning into your woman, and was vulnerable and let go with God, God brought me the people I could lean on.
Exactly. Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Because sometimes our leans are different, and not we, you and I, but some of us, we lean on the wrong people. Like for years, I love helping people. I love giving. Mm-hmm. God was showing me and telling me, like, I love that you give, but you're giving to the wrong souls. Their soul's essence can't receive the medicine you're trying to give them. So it's repelling, and you're getting upset because they're not even asking for what you're giving. But because they have a title, family, friend, associate, you think they want that. So I'm learning now who I should give to, right? And why it's safer for me to receive, because I'm not playing the middle with myself. I'm all in who I am, my shadow and my light. And like someone like you, I know my soul called you into the podcast space to have this discussion. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like in the world, we don't have enough of these as men.
Yeah.
And people are always comparing, but pain is pain.
Yeah.
I'll tell people, doesn't matter your demographic, your class. But, I had someone say years ago, they say the challenges are different, but the emotions are the same.
Yeah.
So your experience, my experience, they're all one and the same. We still needed people. And I realized that God put people in your life to represent its essence in your life, to lean on them, to give you more faith when you don't have it. And that's why vulnerability, a support team, i.e. family, friends, or associates matter. And I think what I'm learning is how to trust that part of life now and allow myself to lean on people and receive from their blessing. For you, you talked about your partner, because I feel the same way in my relating, is that I remember having a very personal conversation with my woman. And Anthony, the thing about it, in my mind, I was so afraid to express what I had in my mind. In my body, we go back to what you said earlier, feeling, I knew I had to tell her. So in my mind, I'm like, man, I don't know. And it's so crazy. As soon as I told her what I felt, she's like, it's okay. It's just life. It happens. I was like, my shoulders dropped.
Yeah.
So I created this story about something that I felt was so heavy and deep. And I feel like I gave it more power than it deserved, because someone was able to take it and hold it lightly and not give it stress that I was giving it. So again, and this is why I think it's important, as men, for us to have these conversations, but for women to listen in, and for men and women to listen in, to be a part of the experience together, that we can hold heavy things lightly, and we can also hold each other together if we're meant to be.
Sure.
But I want to create a space, releasing the podcast and with the work I do, I'm pretty sure in the work you do, where both parties all over the world feel safe to be human, to be themselves, to speak their truth and not be judged, and not receive resistance,
Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that. And I think about, the masculine impulse to some men, and maybe men like you or me, or, men who are conditioned in a certain way, who want to control and think it's our job to do that. And like, even the withholding of truth is a control mechanism, and think you are sort of saving somebody from reality by holding the burden of this thing and not letting them experience it, that you're doing some service to them by hiding that reality. Like, you gotta be able to let people face the truth to be able to make their own decisions, because it's really not honoring their autonomy when you're withholding the truth from them. You're robbing them of free will. You're trying to control their reaction and their response to life by manipulating the context of what they know and receive. That's not a good thing. So you got to be honest and let them respond. I think about J. Cole. This is kind of a refrain in my head. Anytime I feel myself going into this hero complex, thinking I'm the one that's going to protect somebody, just don't save her. She don't want to be saved. That's not your job. That's not your job, is to be the savior. That's not your job. You don't save anybody. And some people have to go through lessons on their own, and they all have a timing and a process, and that's God's work. It's not yours. You're just a conduit, and he's working on you too. So just release the control of trying to save people and to move them through a process that they have their own timing with, that's beyond anybody's control. The best thing you can do is go through my own process, and maybe be a witness to what transformation looks like in certain ways. And maybe that inspires something, but I'm not doing anything to try to make that happen for somebody else. It's impossible. And it's draining.
It's draining.
And you'll end up dissatisfied and depleted, and you realize that you had no power anyway to do anything.
Yeah, it's so true. I think Jay-Z said two quotes that always stood out. He said, no matter where you are, there you are.
Yeah.
And then he said, I'm never giving advice to someone if they don't ask the right question. So, that discernment, right? Like having discernment of when to speak, when not to speak. But what I want to say about withholding the truth, and this is like not an oxymoron, but it's a spiritual context of what I'm going to say, is that people do withhold the truth to have control and have power, right?
Yeah.
But also I experienced in life where I got so much truth, I can't hold it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because energetically, the truth is so heavy. So I can misplace the truth on someone and give it to them at the wrong time.
That's true too. Yeah.
And it's a lot. And then they really can't receive it. And I'm like, oh my God, messed up. Right. So how do you find that balance of when to give the truth, the timing of the truth, and also being the evidence of the truth? Like you said, the witness.
That's super important. And in my training in the last 3 years as in counseling psychology, that really is the lesson, is knowing when to step back and just to be a witness and hold space for people and not jump in too much and try to intervene too much in other people's processes. You just kind of hold it so it can kind of naturally emerge like you would a child. You don't try to, you just let the child grow because they're going to grow anyway, and just kind of doing that process. But there is discernment. And I think especially when choosing partners or choosing people you're around, it is true that some people might have different nervous system structures.
Yeah.
And sometimes what your capacity is not the same as somebody else's. And I think being in attunement to that and knowing how much somebody can receive is super important, but also having the discernment of choosing somebody that resonates with your frequency. And that kind of goes with the work that I do, specifically with individuals, helping them map the sort of internal architecture of who they are and how they operate. So then you can make the right choices about who matches your own sort of geometry, so that you're not in a situation where you have to hold back your authenticity in order to manage somebody else's lack of capacity, or vice versa. That's where you're in this asymmetrical relationship, where it's too asymmetric to the point where you can't grow at your pace without without the burden of somebody else's development. You should be able to be in a parallel process. And then also ultimately, the ideal to me is to be in process toward a higher thing bigger than both of you, which it can be spiritual, it can be God. Yeah, but it's you have to have discernment to make those choices.
Yeah.
Not everybody's the same. Yeah.
And then a lot of people not even attuned to the atonement of the discernment to know what that actually means or even how that feels, right? Go back to the feeling self.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I want to not play devil's advocate, but I want to give a scenario. I'm curious of your perspective. I think the audience, I think people listening will appreciate this. Okay. So you have a guy.
Yep.
You have a girl. And the guy, his whole life, had to take care of himself. He was in survival mode. And through that survival mode, he became successful. The breadwinner in the family. He take care of his mom. His dad really wasn't around like that, but, he's around. And then he gets to a point where the only thing he's lacking is like, damn, I got all this success, but I don't have love, right? Yeah. But in his relating and his experiences, he keep attracting partners who wants a father, right? And he gets high off of taking care of people, like he's the savior, right?
Yeah.
But in the beginning of these situations, so now say the first situation was 5 years, the second situation is 3 years because the first one didn't work. But the second situation is like the first one. So now he is aware like, oh, this is a pattern, right? And in that pattern, what's happening for him in the beginning, the partner, the woman, she loves it. He's taking care of everything. He's providing, he's protecting. But then it's starting to get to a space where that person, the other person, doesn't have full autonomy. They might not feel like they have a purpose or a meaning. And energetically what's being separate of him is he's not allowing the relationship to flourish. He's not allowing and trusting the relationship to unfold because he wants to control it. He wants to be the quarterback of all things. But in his nervous system and his unconscious mind and body, that feels safe to take care because there was no masculine energy around. So I had to become the god of everything. And I'm successful. Look at me. I'm taking care of my woman and right?
Sure.
But he's not happy because now he's hitting this wall that he hit in the first relationship and the second. So he's like, how do I get into a more authentic wholeness, radical wholeness space where I'm allowing my feminine to come up and soften myself and not be so heavy in my masculine? How does that person get out of that containment of always being in the masculine, always providing, doing, controlling, and receive life instead of controlling? How does a person shift into that dynamic?
Yeah, no, it's important. I think at least with this kind of person in this case study, the first thing is that they're starting to become aware at least of a pattern that's happening. So that's actually a very good step, that they're ready for transformation and they're noticing they're stuck in something. And I think the next step for that person that I would think about, healing is necessary. I mean, they have to go on a healing journey and they have to understand what's happening to create that pattern. So I'll give, like, in response to your case study, I'll give a metaphor. So think about a diamond, for example.
Yeah.
Where a diamond is formed is that you have this sort of molecule of carbon. And then over time, the carbon around it gets sort of attracted to it and it starts to build a sort of structure around this initial molecule structure. And then you start to compress it, add heat, add time, and over a lot of time it just hardens into this very specific shape that's really based on that really initial structure of carbons that started millions of years ago. So I think the work that this person has to do, they're starting to see the structure. They're starting to see a shape in this pattern, but they need to go deeper into that really fundamental moment that is that initial molecule that set the whole shape in motion after it. All these layers, you have to break that down and get to that first step of how did the shape get formed in the first place. And once you become aware of not just the shape, but how the shape was formed, then you can start making new decisions from the truth of what created that. If I know this created this shape, it's something that happened either externally or in an environment or even just how you are, then you can start to reshape it once you gain that awareness of what it actually is. So that's going to require a lot of deep work, get into the root of things.
Yes.
And it sounds like it could be some trauma history and things and some those that when I talked about earlier, coming in contact with those wounds, understanding that all the way down to go into the wound, the painful, like you press into an open, it's going to hurt.
It's like a deep tissue massage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even deeper. It's like surgery. It's like surgery. You have to cut into it hurts more first before you get to the healing part, because you have to cut through dead tissue. You have to cut through brokenness, rupture. You have to get all the way in there. And then you get to that part and then you rebuild the scaffolding from that healthy tissue that you got to the bottom of. Yeah. So, it's going to be a little bit more pain, but it's going to be healing pain.
Healing pain. I love that. I never heard of healing pain. Yeah, because correct me if I'm wrong, because I want to talk a little bit briefly about, plant medicine, mushrooms, like psychedelics, because in my trajectory of life and doing work, and I think the work works, right? The prayer, the meditation, and breath work, reprogram the subconscious, shifting, hypnotherapy, all this stuff, shifting, the paradigm. But I realized with stuff that's so deeply rooted, like this diamond you're talking about, this pressure that's at the root of this thing, that's comes up, but it's so suffocating because the person is trying to keep it so tied away because of that pain they don't want to reach again. Maybe it started when they were young. Yeah. And I can't say this is the only way, because I don't think plant medicine is for everyone, but I believe like something like psychedelics helps that process. I can't say that it's easier. I think it's more potent and more quicker to get to the truth that they've been holding, or it's holding for long, to kind of open that part up and not be such a long process to get out of it, because it's a pattern, right? And once you get to that root to understand like, oh, wow, this happened at 7 years old when my mom told me she was going to do something, she didn't do it. And then I asked my father, then he didn't do it. So this has put me on a journey. Like, I'm not going to ask for no help. I'm going to take care of everybody. I'm going to be successful, right? Mm-hmm. But then you hit that pinnacle of success, knowing that the anchor of that success is pain that you never acknowledge or express. Yep. So you're going to get all the success and you still going to feel pain because you're not being honest about why you had the success. You didn't feel enough. You didn't feel worthy. So you had to prove yourself. So it was like an inauthentic anchor to push that, to get that. And then now you realize like, why am I still... I'm not learning a lesson. So what is your take on psychedelics? And are you in that space? I think when we spoke offline, you spoke a little bit about it. I just want to know your experiences within it.
Yeah. I mean, the school I went to in San Francisco, California Institute of Integral Studies, they're known for even in like the 70s and the work they've done in transpersonal psychology, and a lot of the work they've done, and even the philosophy of the school is rooted in these psychological and consciousness processes to really expand you into, new spaces and healing and all that. And a lot of it is around psychedelics. They do have a curriculum and that kind of stuff too. So I've learned through that. Like in the program that I was in, it was about not just, psychedelics was an initial interest because before the program, and I had a healing journey for myself where actually a guy in Chicago, he calls himself a shaman or a death doula in those kind of ways. He actually helped me process some grief with the use of psychedelics. And I was able to kind of sidestep some of the pain I was holding, see it differently, like not to erase the pain, but just really change my perspective on it, to really be able to hold it and still live without being sort of weighted down by it and to really expand. So psychedelics certainly helped me with that.
Yeah.
And then that became a journey to how can I then sort of build the integrity for myself to help other people go through a process like that. So I was like, I'm going to go to grad school. I'm going to be able to gain the skill set. So not just to really gain the reverence and respect to be able to hold the medicine in a way that is in a healing way. I think, so yeah, I'm certainly in that space and I've experienced it myself. And now I've built the hands that can hold somebody through that.
This I mean, I love
so
that.
and the heart too, and I think it's beautiful, powerful energy, and I think I would just continue to say that it has to be approached with reverence and skill in order for those positive outcomes to come. But yeah, the future for that, who knows? I honestly think a lot of people could benefit from some psychedelic assisted therapy or psychedelic journeys and retreats and things like that. A lot of beautiful work being done in those spaces. So it's helped me. It sounds like
reverence. Yeah, like it's true. I mean, I was called to it, and then I answered it, and it shifted my frequency, and that allowed me to. I cleared the vibe, bro. I can feel it. Like, damn, I'm different. So now I'm just, in the process of continue to evolve in that space in a healthy way. But before we get off here, I want to tap in just a little bit. I know we ain't got to talk. And I just had 2 more questions, but the first question is, what did your journey on being on a Bachelorette do for you in your life that gave you a different perspective to be who you are today?
Yeah. I mean, in a way, that was kind of psychedelic a little bit too, because, going through life in a certain way, and then you kind of, at least my experience is stepping into a whole different arena that just changed my trajectory and my perspective on just how I was navigating life. I would honestly say it was life-changing in ways. I didn't lean into certain aspects of it, like personally, because I wanted to go, but I gained some value from it in a way that allowed me to reach this moment. But I think it allowed me at least to get more awareness of relationships. And I'll say that because it's really not the experience on the TV show itself. I mean, of course, meeting people like you and the guys and stuff, but really the aftershock of it.
Yeah.
How it continues, because that's a longer journey. It's like you get like a month or something, whatever, 2 months maybe, depending on how long you stay or whatever. And then that it's like, how is it then? How do you integrate that experience? Because even now, as like 8 years later or something like that, there's still this. It doesn't really disappear. It's like it has sort of changed in a permanent way. So, but I see how I've changed, and I see how my change actually impacts the people in my life in that kind of way. So, it's just been life changing.
No, I mean, I think I really appreciate I don't know if the word is clair dissenting or clair audio. Like it's like you got a gift on like how you speak. It's like you were speaking to me and about it, but you just made me realize it wasn't about the 2 months. It wasn't about the 2 months. It was the aftershock. And you just taught me by speaking. This is why I always empower people to speak up or ask questions, because you don't know who you're helping. When you said the aftershock, you made me understand how I have a gift of integrating experiences into my life, because off of that one show, 7-8 years I built from just that show.
Yeah.
But it was the energy of me integrating everything I had grew in within that space. And I think that's the part about the work you do and the work we're doing that I want to give to the world, is how do we properly embody our experiences where they become our life, and not just a moment, not just 1 month, not just 2 months. Like, oh, I was on the show. Like, because me thinking about it, I don't know how I actually did it, like the formula wise, like my structure, but I know I do it a lot. Like I will get something and then I'll apply it and then it'll be in my life.
Yeah, we have our own process with integration. I think.
Can you explain that? Like, what's the proper way, or what's the simplest way for someone to integrate a phenomenal experience or knowledge or education where it becomes their life and not just knowledge based? It's more feeling based. It's in the body, so it's in your life more.
Yeah, you say it. I mean, I'm going to go back to how I started this conversation. You got to get in your body. Okay. I think taking this new knowledge that you have and then using it to then change the way you approach life, and not just intellectually, but in a habit way.
Got it.
A way of, what do you do daily? How do your daily practices transform based on this new information you've received? And I think that's, and then you take changing your daily practice tomorrow, and you do that over and over again, then you're a new person in a year, because what you do daily is you have a different schedule than the previous person you've had, just to keep that super simple. But daily practice, change the way you move after you change the way you're thinking. And I think that it has to align.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
That's the integration. Yep.
Yeah, that's beautiful, because it's crazy. Like you said, because I had a podcast prior, then I had to literally change the location of this one. So it's so funny. Different environment, right? Different person, right? Last question. When you think of spiritual fitness, what comes to you? What does that mean to you?
I like those two words together. I think that it makes sense because it takes spirituality out of it being just kind of this sort of woo-woo, sort of immaterial, sort of vibey thing, and it takes it into a thing that you can get better at. It takes it into a thing that you can measure, that you can practice, that you can actually, that you can get in the gym and you can be with people and doing it. It just makes it something accessible and something that's actually beneficial to you in a very real way. So I like how you've connected those two concepts.
Yeah, because I mean, it's something that came to me through doing the work, right? On a journey. But this, what we just did in the podcast and this containment, this was spiritual fitness.
Yeah.
And we was mentally, emotionally, spiritually becoming fit together, because you were saying things that was connecting to things. And I was like, oh, okay, I got to ask him this, because I know we're in you know what I'm saying? Like, it felt safe. It felt right. And I think that's what I want people to feel in everyday life. How can I be myself energetically, mentally, socially, physically, financially, spiritually, to be fit, to be who I naturally am and not feel judged or fear, and to allow life to just flow through us like we did in this conversation. Not having to be no outcome, only the income, and the income is the process of the purpose we're in right now in this moment.
It's the fitness. It's uncomfortable sometimes. And I think that needs to be a part of the process too, is that you're feeling discomfort, but then ultimately you're going to adapt and expand and get stronger. So I think that's the part, and that make people deluded that spirituality is just soft and happy and lovey-dovey. Sometimes sometimes you get sore after doing a workout, of course. So
it's heavy.
Part of it too. It's heavy and you get stronger. So yeah.
I love that. Well, AB, Anthony, thank you again for your time. Where can we find you? How can we get into the containment of you? How can we work with you? What do you offer? Like, give us the whole spiel. I will put it in the show notes, but I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, sure. Website is anthonybattle.com. Instagram, Sir Anthony Battle. I do individual work. I like to help people figure out their own structure so they can move through life in a very aware way, noticing themselves, and also come into healthy relationships with other people. So I do that kind of work too. And I have some other projects in the tech and the AI space to really kind of help support what's happening in different relational fields. But I can, that'll come up later in a different place. But yeah, if you want some individual one-on-one work, or even working with a couple trying to gain more awareness, elevate your consciousness, embody experiences, integrate, you can hit me up on my website or my Instagram and schedule a session.
Yes, schedule a session. Anthony Battle, conscious guide. Let's continue to guide people's consciousness for their higher self. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. People, follow him, get into his Instagram, build rapport, go to the website, book a session. But more importantly, subscribe to the podcast and listen to this episode over and over, because I believe integration takes repetition.
Sure.
Right? And the more you listen to something, you grab new things for new experiences, for a new paradigm and timeline. But this is it. Spiritual Fitness Podcast. Thank you, Anthony, once again. We are out. Peace.